Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. LCX is our topic today, the LCX exchange. This is something that's in my portfolio only fairly recently, to be honest. I know it's been around for some time and a lot of you probably hold it already for a long time, perhaps longer than me. But this is an exchange that I have a real belief in for the future. We'll go into a couple more topics around that, which we have covered in previous videos. It's always good to have a quick recap. Before we do that, do go check out our other videos as and when you can. Of course, multitude of different topics, discussions, and various different assets as well. And of course, please, if you have not done so already, smash that like button and the subscribe button to make sure you get all the updated videos as and when they get released by myself, yours truly. So guys, let's look straight into this. We will go into the chart as well on LCX2 as time goes by. One of obviously the biggest topics recently is this crazy situation going on with FTX, which is now spilled into all the other exchanges as well. It's funny, isn't it? Because we always kind of think, well, exchanges do have that risk factor to it anyway. I've always felt that, even when I first started a few years ago. But for me, I find it quite interesting that they come out with all these proof of reserve things now, and not something that they've already thought about before. And it kind of reminds me of, like when you watch like air crash investigations and stuff, and it's kind of like, why don't they fix things but like when they know about it, rather than when something really bad happens? Do you know what I mean? So obviously this has happened, and then all of a sudden everyone's scrambling to go, if we don't put an announcement out here, everyone's going to rip out all their crypto, put them onto ledgers, whatever it might be, or just give up in general. And of course this has come out. So LCX is no different. They've come out with some very interesting information over the last couple of weeks, really solidifying like why this should be a trusted exchange. And if you remember our intro video to LCX, of course we looked at the the Liechtenstein laws and everything, and the regulation that's behind this particular project and asset. It's really strong. And this is also something to consider for when you look at what they're working with as well. So of course, European Commission, for example, which we talk about quite a lot on this channel, these guys obviously pretty much operate as an umbrella downwards from like the World Economic Forum and things like this, to insinuate and integrate certain technologies, regulations, standardizations, as you would expect from a commission that is operating a multitude of countries under its regime, right? So this is no different to technology aspects in terms of blockchain and what we've spoken about before. And we do know a few projects that are related to the European Commission have been selected as, like, I think it was the last 7 out of, 50, 60 blockchain companies originally, and then it got knocked down to 20 odd, and then it's down to 7. I mean, the likes of IOTA, for example, are in there. But LCX is, of course, as well, part of this in some aspects, simply because of its basically standardization and what it's achieved so far in terms of regulation, security, privacy, all these kind of things. And of course, from the most recent points that we mentioned about being transparent, this is very important to investors, and it's important if we're going to allow crypto and digital currencies to really push ahead and be trustworthy, right? So we cast our minds back. If you remember, we did a video on LCX maybe a few months ago, where the SEC considered it to be a security, and then there's always big hoo-ha about this. And I was like, well, guys, just calm down. Everyone has this like big jump in effect when the SEC says something. Well, first of all, they're for the US anyway, so this only majorly kind of affects the fact that US residents at the moment cannot trade with LCX, and it's no different to some of the other exchanges and some of the other assets out there, right, as well. It has, about XRP, for example, but when it's deemed a security or not, that's about clarity, and that's a good thing. Obviously, some principals don't want to be a security. They want to be flexible and decentralized and clear by themselves, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But at the end of the day, SEC is its own body, as is Liechtenstein's body, which is similar as well, and the same here in the UK, the FCA. So the FCA hasn't blocked anything, particularly in the UK. I mean, it's done a few things with exchanges, and rightly so, in my opinion. Albeit it was a bit frustrating at the time, and that's about a year and a half ago now. It's quite some time ago. But you can see the development of this importance as an investor, whether you're a retail investor or a high-end investor. to know that what you're using is adequate, efficient, but also transparent, secure, privatized, in terms of private data and things like this, and reliable. So this is where LCX, in my opinion, does step ahead across many of the other exchanges. Now, to reiterate, at the moment, that LCX for me is quite new. It's currently 33,000 on watch list, so people are watching this quite heavily. In terms of its position, it's ranked 405 at the moment, so it's still quite low in the table compared to a lot of the other exchanges out there, of course. However, we must understand that this is relatively a newish exchange. In the last couple of years, it did a sort of revamp over this time as well, and it has had some good price movements upwards towards around this sort of 50-cent mark back in 2021. We'll go into the chart properly on the trade view in a second, but I just wanted to reiterate a couple of points here, because for me the market cap's really good. This would indicate that there's good ammunition in here, there's good value in this, there's a lot of holders, and it's got a lot of strength in terms of how much volume and everything's going into this. So you can see even in the last 24 hours how much money's being transferred in and out of this. And I'm going to try and sort of pick out these kind of points moving forward with some of these other projects, because this is part of the process, guys, when you're doing your research and thinking about what you want to invest and not invest in, and what's risky, what's not risky. So you can tell a lot from the market cap. This, by the way, market cap doesn't mean that this is going to go absolutely flying or absolutely drop. This is an indication of how much is being invested in right now, how much of this is obviously circulating reply left or in remaining, but how much of that has already been taken up. So it's a strong project, and it's obviously something that people have a lot of confidence in. And there's some good exchanges that hold this. I think there's a few missing on this list. I think even I use BitTrue for mine as an example. And liquidity is fairly low out of the 1,000 mark, but it's still pretty decent, right? But the confidence is high and it's reliable in some of these exchanges. So to accumulate is quite a simple thing to do. Of course, you can get LCX directly on the LCX exchange itself too. Something that I set up a few weeks ago. Haven't really used it much just yet, just because really the amount of pairings aren't fully adequate enough for me to move away from ones I'm already using. However, as the transpiration has occurred over the last few weeks, it does make you think more logically and effectively about where do you want to be using your trades, where do you want to be accumulating from in the future in a reliable way that we see that's regulated. So of course Binance and all these bigger exchanges are regulated to some capacities in most countries, and they do adhere to most laws and terms, etc. But yeah, of course there's some out there which have just gone really quiet or haven't provided any information about proof of reserve or anything like this. So back to my point is that LCX is very strong. It's still relatively new in the game, but I think this one moving forward is going to be really important, one to have, at least even for token utility and the token itself. I think this is going to have a good ride, and we'll go into the chart in a second. But yeah, for sure, this one is one that I'm trying to accumulate as much as I can when I can. But yeah, for sure, I'm maybe a bit late to the party compared to many other people. But in fact, let's look at the chart now, because we can kind of reiterate that point as to where we have been and where we are now with LCX. And it's kind of a good indicator to show you how much room there is for improvement. So first of all, I'm going to see here visually the movement here. We saw on CoinMarketCap the penetration upwards in 2021. Unfortunately, this data on TradeView, isn't showing everything before this. However, what I would like to anticipate and make a point of is that this has a lot of room to grow in the future. So we're currently down at 4.5 cents. So way off the 50 odd cents that we saw back in the 2021 period, right? So this has a lot of room to grow. We see on here on the right hand side, the indicators are showing 74% and 87% on the year to date and the 1 year respectively. So there's lots of room there. Now, for me as an investor, I'm sitting here going, okay, I find LCX very interesting. I think that I like the regulation aspect. I like that it's going to grow. and it's involved with big organizations like the European Commission to help standardize and regulate the space a lot more. So you've got this encouragement and this aspect to it, as well as being a decent exchange already, albeit, as I said, does need to improve and add things to it, but that comes with time. Don't worry about that too much. So we see ourselves down here at these lower regions, and to be honest, I don't know why there's a white dinosaur down here. That's really bizarre. But we can see, if you remember the last video that we did, we matched this point here saying this is a really point of interest based on historic data, especially here back in 12th of May this year, where we can see this is a point that's looking for support. So as we sort of tail ourselves around this area, of course, there's an opportunity for it to potentially go down lower because of the way the market is going. However, we can see that there is good opportunity to accumulate at these areas. Now, if it does drop down, of course, that's a good opportunity to grab some more. And this is where the dollar cost averaging perspective comes in. And this is the method that I use a lot. I'm not here to buy and sell LCX and most of my tokens or assets in this year or the couple of years to come. It's more towards like 2025 to 2030, where I see the market coming in with an influx of mass usage, utility, and all of these things as well. So of course, if we get a big bull market, like similarly to before, and you're investing at 5 cents and we're getting to some really good numbers up these regions to 20, 25, 50, etc., then of course we're going to play some sells, and I'll be with you along that way to show you what I am doing along that path. But for now, it's a good point for accumulation in terms of like the risk factor. For me, the RSI is being at 44 on the 14-day and 45 on the 28-day. This is still relatively low. Of course, as it was a couple of days ago, it was obviously a bit lower because of what happened. However, I want to make this point as well, guys. How many assets dropped significantly over the last couple of weeks because of that FTX movement? Now, this hasn't really dropped significantly. I think this is kind of accelerated the pattern downwards that was happening anyway. As you can see, this trend, you always get profit taking and drop downs as it stabilizes itself, right? So there's a bit of an acceleration here, and it's not huge. So this, again, going back to that market cap point, showing that there's a lot of confidence in this project and asset, and as an exchange, more importantly, to move forwards with. So again, this is a good buy point. I do have some buy orders down at the low regions of 4 cents, which I'll mark in here now. And I do have one slightly lower than that at around 3.7 cents. So not a huge difference, but certainly enough if you're accumulating in big batches like I am trying to do with LCX. It's not like some of the others where I do a lot of manual trades as well in terms of buying. This is more for me to think a bit more strategically, because it's one I've started from scratch, and I would just want to get the best possible opportunities at the lower possible prices to accumulate LCX, because I do think this is going to be a really big project moving forward and something that's going to provide really significant gains. And in fact, if we think about this even further, if we were to start, I mean, this could be a while off, guys. This could be even a couple of years, depending on how the market goes, of course. But if we take these lower points from the current position of 4.5 cents that we are currently at, I'll just mark this up around about to where it should be. It's roughly, let me zoom in. Here we go. That's a bit better. We will be able to see that actually there's a lot of room to grow. So if I just put this here for a second, you can see this already. Like, we're already 700%. Can you imagine getting back to around that 50 cent mark? Almost 1,000% gain there, which is quite phenomenal, really. So you can imagine when you're doing your maths and you're accumulating at these points, eventually, hopefully, LCX will get to those areas again, or indeed even some of these first spectrum areas are even quite significant returns, of course. But to get to around that sort of 44 cent, 50 cent mark again, wow, nearly 1,000%, if not 1,000 when it gets to 50. So loads of room for improvement. But guys, that's very much around LCX and a few points about it, why I'm invested in it, or certainly some of the points of why I'm doing it. Go and check out the intro videos if you want to know a bit more about it. But yeah, this one I think is going to be a really good project moving forwards, and one I'm certainly trying to accumulate as much as I can when I can. So let us know if you're holding LCX out there, guys. Really interested to know. Let us know your comments about it as well, and comments in general about all these exchanges. What do you think about LCX versus some of the others out there? Do you think a lot of the other ones should follow suit, especially more relating to the governments of which these projects are in their own countries, really solidifying regulation and trying to set an example? So guys, I'm going to wrap that up there. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video, and certainly the next LCX video. Take care. Bye-bye.